Well, you can see Professor Michael Clarke, our military analyst, has joined us.
Hi, Michael.
Very good morning to you, Michael. Love to see you twice in 1 week. I'm very lucky. And this is our viewers. So look, so where are we with all of this, Michael, at the moment? Because we are hearing from the US there's going to be intensification of the war. We heard that from our guest Ben Zan just now, that his people in Tehran have heard more bombs dropping.
Yes, the United States has said that they're moving into a new phase now. And Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, he said a couple of days ago, well, all right, we've dealt with the coastal areas of Iran, which means that our aircraft can now go, in up country, as it were, towards Tehran, because they've been throwing missiles at Tehran, so the Israelis, but they want to get their aircraft over the country. And he said, we're bringing in more tactical air power. Mm-hmm. And so that's probably F-15s, F-35s, which can, as it were, go into Tehran safely, or into the country safely, and then release weapons quite close to their targets. Remember, a lot of the targets that they're after are launchers, missile launchers. If you get the launchers, the missile is useless. And a lot of these launchers are hidden, and they're mobile. So they'll only get sight of them quite quickly. Mm-hmm. And so that's the idea. They need aircraft. It's usually known as a taxi rank system, where aircraft sort of circle around with no particular target. Right. And then the AWACS aircraft, the Airborne Warning and Control System, sees the target, gives them the target, allocates an aircraft to it, and the aircraft is there within 2 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever it is. So the idea is that to create a situation where every time the Iranians bring a transport director launcher out, then within a few minutes it's targeted by an aircraft. That's what they'd like to create, and chances are they probably will. But even then, if they have aircraft over Iran, the Iranians must fancy their chances at bringing one or two of them down.
With their
I don't know if they can, but I mean, they must give that a try, because what the Iranians are trying to do is to make this expensive for America and to last out for a few weeks until it becomes difficult for Trump to carry on. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and Iran has even talked about the prospect of ground war. Donald Trump has said that's a waste of time, effectively trying to say we've done enough damage already, we don't need to think about that. I mean, is there a possibility of troops going in?
Not American troops, although more American troops are going to the region. And President Trump has not taken that off the table. When he was asked, he sort of was non-committal, and then he said, well, he wouldn't do much good. I mean, he changes his mind on all these things from interview to interview. I mean, what he does, he sits in the White House or sometimes at Mar-a-Lago, and he has journalists ring him up, and he spends hours on the phone just riffing with journalists, and they all report it back. So he says completely contradictory things, which is, the idea that we say this is a war in search of a strategy. That's the point. There isn't a strategy, it's just a war. And although the military know what they're doing, the president doesn't seem to have made up his mind what he's trying to achieve. The boots on the ground, ultimately, if there's to be a change of regime, there have to be boots on the ground. So the boots on the ground have got to be the ordinary people of Iran, who he again has said, come out, this is yours to take. He said it, then he didn't, then he said it, then he didn't. Now he said it again. So he's changed his mind on that 5 times now. So the 5th iteration is that you've got to come out now and take control of your government. Well, at the moment, if they come out, they'll get shot. Yeah. The Bajis, who are the militias, and there's about 600,000 of them reputedly. I mean, maybe only 300,000 are out there, but the Bajis are moving around on motorbikes, and if they see anybody out on the streets that looks suspicious or is not wearing proper dress, they go for them. And these people are murderers. I mean, they've now got, as it were, free rein, the IRGC and the Bajis, to shoot people, as they did in January. So it's still very, very dangerous for Iranians to come out on the streets. The other possibility is that the Americans are trying to foment a Kurdish uprising in the north, and good luck with that one. I mean, it will destabilise the wider region if it works, and it almost certainly won't work.
Yeah, and as we heard from Ben, they're very concerned about civil war, and also the IRGC on television in Iran telling people not to come out for exactly...
Absolutely, yeah. And the IRGC are targeting the Kurdish areas, both in Iran and in Iraq. And Talabani, the Kurdish leader in Iraq, has said, we're having nothing to do with this. Right. I mean, Talabani knows what he's talking about, and he's the deputy prime minister of the autonomous region in northern Iraq. And he said, we're neutral, we're not taking part in this. So the Iranian Kurds, they don't have a militia, they have a couple of thousand people. And the IRGC will turn out 5,000 against them and gun them down.
What about further spread? We have seen Azerbaijan, for example, saying that it's going to retaliate. They say that they've been victim to Iranian, I think it was drones, wasn't it, or missiles.
Yeah.
Do you see this spreading even further?
Yeah, it was, and the missile fell on Nachirin, which is the little enclave, the Azeri enclave inside Armenia. You remember the Azerbaijanis fought 2 wars now against Armenia to take back Nagorno-Karabakh, which they've now done. And there's this little enclave which is still inside Armenia, which is very tense. And it so happens it fell on the airport in the enclave, along with 3 other sites. Probably a misfire of some sort, or a miscalculation, because Arachi, the Iranian foreign minister, has said, oh, it's not us, it was the Israelis, which it almost certainly wasn't. But I think this is a mistake in the sense that the IRGC are now, they've lost their top level, so they've taken command down to a lower level, and people are just doing what they were told to do before the war started. And somebody has targeted the enclave in Azerbaijan. It's not what Tehran seems to have intended. It probably won't be repeated. If it is repeated, then clearly they're opening up a new phase, just trying to make the war as wide and as dangerous as possible, because that's part of the strategy. You know, they've gone right up, the Iranians have gone right up the escalation ladder from the very beginning. Within a week, they've inflamed the region, as they said they would. So maybe it's a sort of random way of bringing another country in. More likely, it's a mistake, actually. And the fact that the Iranians are trying to row back on it, I think, is probably quite significant.
We'll see if Azerbaijan respond before they have the chance to do anything else. Talk to us about the British moves at the moment. More typhoons are going to Qatar. We're told helicopters are going to Cyprus as well. Yeah. I tried to get the Deputy Prime Minister to admit that it was too little too late, but he wouldn't have it. What did you your sense of it?
Well, Wildcat helicopters to Cyprus, because they're useful in anti-drone operations. The typhoons to Qatar is interesting, because we have a joint squadron. Number 12 Squadron is a joint Qatari RAF squadron, and it was established some years ago as a training squadron. When the Qataris bought Typhoons, we said, OK, we'll train you on Typhoons, and as an act of good fellowship, we'll have a joint squadron. So they re-established 12 Squadron, which had gone out of business, and they made it a joint Qatari RAF squadron. Half of the pilots are Qatari, half are RAF. They're really good. I've met some of them. Very good. And 12 Squadron normally sits at Coningsby in Lincolnshire, the whole squadron. And in January, the Qatari government said, can we have a 12 Squadron over here, please? And they sent 4 Typhoons, and they've now reinforced it. Right. And so the air defence of Qatar is not only 12 Squadron, but 12 Squadron, I think, I haven't got this confirmed, but I think 12 Squadron are on the front line here. So to join British Qatari Squadron.
Shot down the drone earlier.
Looks like it, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts as you watch this, Michael? I mean, obviously this could go in any number of directions, but what do you think will happen? How will this end, in your view?
Well, we've got 2 strategies in competition. We can see what they are now after a week. So the United States is saying we will demolish the ability of Iran to project force outside of its borders. That's the military objective. That's what the military say. And if they're given an objective, they can do that. It'll take some time. It'll take some 2 or 3 weeks or more to literally take down everything they've got of a military nature. But what the politics is behind that, we still don't know, because President Trump hasn't made his mind up. So are they just trying to hurt Iran, or to create regime change, or somehow to make sure that there are no ballistic missile capabilities, no military, no nuclear? So that's possible. That's their strategy, which doesn't have an end point politically. The Iranians have a clearer strategy. It probably won't work, but it's clearer, which is to say to make this war painful for everybody, so that President Trump eventually feels pressures from the American public, from the economy, from East Asia, from the allies in the Gulf, and then he will declare victory and walk away. Right? That's what he'll do. And he'll say it's the biggest victory in the world, and the Iranian revolution will still be there. That's the point. And remember, as far as they're concerned, they're fighting for their lives, and they're fighting for God. You know, they don't think in the way that we would think of rational thought, because for them this is a religious war against Satan, the satanic forces of the Americans. And so if they're there at the end of it, the fact that Iran will be on its knees is incidental to the fact that they have survived as God intended. And if Iran is wrecked, well, that's God's purpose.